My father was a great man, a hero, so they say. Word on the street is that Brother Voodoo's making his way into the Maku, and there's a strong theory about how and where he could debut. And the answer: the standalone Dracula project. That's right, the one that's been making waves for a while now. There's already been a deep dive into how Dracula could fit into the Maku, but it's time to go even further. Plus, a few more key characters could be introduced in this solo Dracula movie, so stick around because it's all getting broken down bit by bit. Even though the Maku hasn't fully introduced vampires yet, Agatha All Along drops some interesting details about how they might work in this universe. Episode 4 introduced Lilia Calderou, played by Patty Leone, who casually mentioned being bitten by a vampire, but never turning into. Normally, a vampire bite leads to transformation, so this suggests one of two things: either she stopped the process, or her magic made her immune. In the comics, there are a few ways to cure or prevent vampirism, and one of the most unexpected involves the Hulk. When Black Widow was bitten, a sterilized sample of Bruce Banner's radioactive blood burned out the vampire cells before they could take hold. Another known cure: killing the vampire responsible for the transformation, which sometimes reverses the process. Even Wakanda's heart-shaped herb has been shown to cure vampirism in some cases. However, the Maku hasn't fully established its own vampire rules yet, meaning they could tweak the lore however they want. Whether it's making vampires immune to sunlight, giving them magical weaknesses, or introducing alternative blood sources, Marvel has the perfect opportunity to properly introduce vampires into the Maku, especially with Blade on the horizon. Kevin Feige recently confirmed in an interview with Only that Marvel is committed to Blade and will keep fans updated as they figure out his place in the larger MCU story. Since Blade is a half-vampire, the movie will need to explain where vampires have been hiding, how they operate, and how they fit into the bigger picture. If Marvel releases a Dracula movie before Blade or Midnight Suns, it would be a smart way to introduce supernatural elements smoothly. The Maku is clearly setting up the Midnight Suns, the supernatural superhero team featuring Blade, Doctor Strange, Moon Knight, Jack Russell, Man-Thing, and Elsa Bloodstone. And what does a team like this need? A major supernatural threat. That's where Dracula comes in. He's not just any vampire. He's one of Marvel's most powerful, and he doesn't operate alone. He commands an entire army of vampires, making him the perfect villain for a team-up film. A Dracula solo movie wouldn't just introduce him as a threat. It could also set up Blade's motivation for forming the Midnight Sun. The Eternals post-credit scene already hinted that Blade is tracking supernatural threats when he reached out to Dane Whitman, aka Black Knight. With Elsa Bloodstone already introduced in Werewolf by Night, another experienced monster hunter is already in play. For a Dracula movie, Marvel could pull from the Curse of Dracula storyline, where Dracula manipulates world leaders and attempts a vampire apocalypse, making him not just a monster, but a master strategist. Another option? The Montesi formula, where Doctor Strange, Blade, and others try to wipe out vampires using an ancient spell, which would set up the Midnight Suns perfectly. A Dracula solo movie could even explore his origins, while Rise of the Vampires could explain why vampires have remained hidden in the MCU until now. As for casting, Luke Evans would be a perfect Dracula. He's played the role before in Dracula Untold. And while the film wasn't a massive hit, his performance stood out. If done right, Dracula could become a major recurring villain in the MCU supernatural side, just like Loki was for the Avengers. That brings up another interesting point. Fan favorite Jenna Ortega and Keanu Reeves have been at the center of MCU supernatural casting rumors. Jenna Ortega's self as a modern screen queen after her roles in Wednesday, Scream, and Beetlejuice. Many believe she'd be a perfect fit for Nina Price, aka Vampire by Night, a character with the ability to shapeshift into a vampire or a werewolf between dusk and dawn. With the Maysiu supernatural corner expanding, her horror, background, and natural charisma make her an ideal pick to bring Nina Price to life. And then there's Keanu Reeves. Fans have been fan casting him in the MCU for years, with Ghost Rider often being the most popular pick. But if the Maku is diving deeper into supernatural lore, he could also take on a darker role, maybe as the ancient vampire Varney, or even a new take on Mephisto. Back to Luke Evans. His performance as Dracula in Dracula Untold was one of the strongest parts of the film. If the Maku wants to establish a long-term supernatural villain, Evans would bring both experience and gravitas to the role. Imagine a Midnight Suns lineup featuring Mahershala Ali's Blade, Oscar Isaac's Moon Knight, Gail Garcia Bernal's Werewolf by Night, Jenna Ortega's Vampire by Night or Elsa Bloodstone, Keanu Reeves as Ghost Rider, and Luke Evans as Dracula. That would be a supernatural showdown worth watching. If the Maku is planning a solo Dracula project before Blade, there are some key characters who could fit right in. One solid choice, Magik, a powerful mutant sorceress with deep ties to demonic realms. Not only is she a skilled magic user, but she's also a key member of the New Mutants, making her a potential ally or enemy in a Dracula-focused story. Another strong possibility, Brother Voodoo, aka Jericho Drum. A master of voodoo magic and a former sorcerer supreme. He's actually fought Dracula in the comics before. His unique magical abilities would make him an excellent addition to the ZU supernatural expansion. And then there's Shickless Queen and Deadpool's ex-wife. She's had plenty of run-ins with Dracula, and her mix of dark humor and supernatural power would bring a chaotic energy to the film. With the MCU gearing up for Doctor Doom, there's even a chance Victor Von Doom could make a surprise appearance in a Dracula-centered project, adding another layer of intrigue. Marvel is clearly expanding its supernatural storytelling, and Dracula could be the key to bringing it all together. And that's a wrap for today's video. Make sure to subscribe and drop a like, because there's plenty more MCU news coming soon, including which X-Men movie will kick off the franchise. Stay tuned and see you in the next one.